Well, you know, in terms of a person accepting Islam, whoever accepts Islam, we have to accept the fact that the person, you know, is Muslim. And you can't look inside of his heart and judge whether the person is or is not. And some of the Yahud in the time of the Prophet ﷺ accepted Islam. Mukhayriq, one of the Yahud, Mukhayriq, accepted Islam, and he was shaheed in one of the battles. So if a person accepts Islam, we have to accept, you know, the fact that they have done that and pray that Allah would guide him, you know, to Islam, whoever it is. In terms of our dealing generally with the people of the book, depending upon where you are, this is a question that goes heavily into, you know, it's a political question. But in terms of our dealing, we can deal directly with the people of the book. And there's a difference between somebody who is from the Bani Israel or from the Jews and a Zionist. You have to separate sometimes Zionism from the religion itself. Sometimes it's difficult to do that, today especially, because of how widespread the power that it has over their minds. However, technically speaking, there is a difference. Because in Zionism, the people who developed Zionism are not actually religious people at all. Okay, so you know, theoretically, we still do separate Zionism from the people of the book. You know, so each person has to be dealt with on their own merit. At the same time, we're not naive and foolish, right? We still have to tie our camels in a sense. But in order to do da'wah, you have to be able to go out and talk to people. We have to face the public. We can't hide inside of our corners anymore. We have to come out in the open. And if there are some people out in the public, you know, who we don't like, or who are different than us, still it should not stop us from spreading the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then openly, you know, coming out with our Islam. Because there's so much propaganda against Islam today that it's important for us to express ourselves publicly and express ourselves openly in front of people without any fear or worry about who we're dealing with. Allahu Akbar. Any other questions that anybody has? Yes, brother.
You just give us a brief of the American Muslims. How can they organize this and the likelihood of America?
What is happening in America is that because when the slaves were taken from West Africa, about 30%, at least 30% of the slaves were Muslims. And so within the heritage of African Americans is a strong connection with Islam. And so there are large amounts of African Americans who are accepting Islam now. And also because it's, you know, the freedom and the equality that Islam gives, Allah has willed that African Americans would enter into large groups. But the new policy being used in America is not just divide and conquer, it's confuse and conquer. So a number of organizations in the name of Islam were raised up and financed in America, and they spread ideologies un-Islamic in the name of Islam. The biggest one was the Nation of Islam, whose leader was Elijah Muhammad. And he said that, you know, it was apartheid system in America. You know, just like in all of the colonies. And the darker you were, you're on the bottom. The lighter you are, you're on the top. So Elijah Muhammad is a black nationalist leader, a tribal leader. He turned it around. And he met a man by the name of W. Fard Muhammad. Nobody knows exactly where he came from. Some say he came from Lebanon. Some say he came from Turkey. Some say actually the FBI released their reports. After 50 years, they released their reports. And the FBI said that he was half Polynesian, Maori, you know, the Maori people in New Zealand, that his father was Maori and his mother was European. And he was being used by the Japanese in order to bring African Americans against the U.S. government in the 1930s. It was before World War II. So he taught that, I think he was Ismaili or something like that, it sounded like. But he taught numbers and things like Ismailis. And he taught that Allah was a man, well, iyadu billah, who, you know, and so there's a spaceship flying around. And every 144,000 years, one of the scientists becomes Allah. This is what he taught. Now, nobody knew Islam in America, right? They didn't know Islam. And so, but he also taught you should be clean, you should stand up for the truth, right? And he said that black people are the children of God and that white people are devils, created by an evil scientist named Yaqub. Okay? Now, of course, these things have nothing to do with Islam. But there was so much racism in America that the people believed him. And he also taught self-respect, independence, and so they joined this organization. And until a man by the name of Malcolm X, or Malcolm Little, joined the group, and he became the greatest speaker for Elijah Muhammad. But he was a very sincere person. And he found out that Elijah was a liar, a kadhab. And so Elijah kicked him out the organization. Malcolm went to Mecca. And there, he saw real Islam. He saw white, yellow, brown, black, all together. And he said, Elijah is a liar. And he returned to America and he was teaching real Islam. And he was assassinated by the combined forces of Elijah Muhammad and the government in 1965. In 75, Elijah died. And so his son, Warith ad-Din, took over the movement. And he started to come towards Islam. Now, their practices, their 5 pillars of Islam. This is how the enemies of Islam did in America. They had 5 pillars. The Shahada is wrong. They said Allah is a man and Elijah is the last prophet. Wa'iyadu billah. Salat, they used to make sitting down on a chair. Fasting, they used to fast in December, not in Ramadan. Khalaf al-Yahud wa Nasara. Be different than the Jews and the Christians. So they had to fast in December. They used to make Hajj to Chicago, not to Mecca. Right? And so then Warith ad-Din took over, and Malcolm X, his best student was a man named by Louis Farrakhan, who was a nightclub entertainer. He's a singer, right? And Malcolm taught him how to speak. And he copied everything about Malcolm. He lived underneath him and became his student. And so he took over the leader. He speaks out. He's strong against civil rights, injustice. He speaks out. But when it comes to Islam, he's confused. And this is the problem, because at some times, if he comes amongst Muslims, he seems like a Muslim. If he goes amongst his group, he changes back to Elijah Muhammad's teachings. So this is the problem. And the only thing what is being said today, there is a magazine, a paper called The Final Call. That's their paper. And on the back of The Final Call, it says, what we believe. Now, one of the points, I think it's point number 1, it says, we believe that Allah appeared in the person of W.D. Fard Muhammad, the Mahdi of the Muslims and the Messiah of the Christians. Okay? If he changes that, then that means they have really changed. But if he doesn't change the paper, and he doesn't change their belief in Elijah Muhammad, then they haven't changed. He came here to Australia and to different places, and he speaks openly. He stands up for the rights of African people, Aboriginal people. He does do that. We have to give him that credit. He speaks. But we know that he could be used, he's being used to give the wrong impression of Islam. That's the problem. The majority of African Americans are Ahl Sunnah wa Jama'ah. It's the majority. About 70%. But the one that comes in the newspaper is the Nation of Islam. But the majority is Ahl Sunnah wa Jama'ah. So alhamdulillah, Islam is now spreading, and more people are, even just one boxer, he just won the world championship or something, Hassan Rahman. Okay, he's a Muslim. His father is an imam. He's Muslim.